This weekend, USA Today reports that 20 people in the Office of Neurological and Physical Medicine Devices at the FDA were just fired. Perhaps coincidentally, that is the unit at the FDA that was investigating Elon Musk's company, the company that he owns that wants to graft computer chips onto people's brains. People doing that oversight work for Elon Musk's company are just fired at the FDA. And on that point, on that story, here's the thing we're seeing over and over again now. Quote, the dismissal letters sent to FDA reviewers cited performance reasons, even though these employees had no issues on their prior performance and had received top-notch rankings several weeks ago, according to two sources familiar with the matter. So they're being told they're being fired for performance reasons, but there's nothing in any of their performance reviews that would support that. In fact, quite the contrary. We're seeing that at FDA, where they fired people who were in charge of regulating the computer chips Elon Musk wants to graft into your brain. We're also seeing similar reports in the firings of the National Nuclear Security Administration folks. People being told they're being fired for poor performance, even though there's nothing in their performance review history that would suggest any poor performance. Same thing is happening among people being fired at USDA and at the Department of Education and at the U.S. Forest Service and at the VA and at the Small Business Administration and at the Department of Transportation. NBC News reviewed documentation there that shows people being fired supposedly for performance reasons had just received, quote, exceptional performance reviews. And so I don't know if the pattern here seems as obvious to everybody as it does to me, but it seems to me like it's a pattern, right? There was no $50 million in condoms for Gaza that Hamas used to make their bombs. There are no 150-year-old Americans getting Social Security checks. The Reuters news agency did not get a government contract to deceive the public. The government does not fund the New York Times or Politico to produce positive stories about Democrats. The U.S. government does not pay for celebrity junkets to Ukraine. That was literally Russian propaganda. And the U.S. government is not right now trying to fire hundreds of thousands of people who work in the U.S. government because they've all had bad performance reviews. This isn't happening. One way to tell when somebody doesn't actually have a good reason for what they're doing is when every reason they give you for that thing is very obviously made up. None of the things they're saying about why they need to do these mass, and in many cases, apparently illegal firings, holds up once you put it up to the light. But they're going ahead. They're now firing the people who work at the CDC on bird flu, as bird flu becomes a massive multi-state epidemic affecting tens of millions of animals in America and increasingly people. They have now stopped all of the programs in Mexico run by the State Department's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement. What do these programs in Mexico do for the State Department's Bureau of International Narcotics Law Enforcement? What do they do? Oh, that's the part of the U.S. government that tries to stop the supply chain for fentanyl coming into this country. All of their actions have been stopped. They've now started firing people at the part of HHS that funds childcare and Head Start. They are firing the people who work at Gettysburg. They are firing the people who work at Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. And, I asked a minute ago, who voted for this? Maybe you don't care about any of those things that I just mentioned. Maybe you only care about stopping immigration, about making immigration restriction work like lightning, making that the most important and top priority thing that the U.S. government does, go fast, get people out of here. Maybe that's your motivation. I don't know. I think it might be for some people who voted for Trump, right? If so, please consider that Trump is also now firing immigration judges in large numbers with no explanation and no notice. With more than 3 million immigration cases backlogged in the system, they are firing the judges who handle those cases, which will grind the system further to a halt. Because efficiency. Tonight, The Washington Post is reporting, and NBC News has confirmed, that whatever Trump has sent Elon Musk's people to do at the Social Security Administration, it was apparently alarming enough to the career official running that agency right now that she resigned. Quote, the acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration left her job this weekend after a clash with Elon Musk's U.S. DOJ service over its attempts to access sensitive government records. Again, that's sensitive government records at Social Security. This follows a story also broken this weekend by The Washington Post that Elon Musk is also trying to access the most sensitive individual tax records that are maintained by the IRS. But I also have to note, and I kind of can't believe this, but for the fifth time since Donald Trump was sworn in just 4 weeks ago, we are also tonight watching developments in yet another plane crash. This time, it's a Delta Connections flight that originated in Minneapolis. It crashed on landing at Toronto Pearson International Airport. The flight was carrying 80 people. 18 have been injured. Some of them have been hospitalized. The FAA commissioner had taken action against Elon Musk's SpaceX company. Musk demanded his resignation. He resigned on Inauguration Day. Trump didn't bother appointing a replacement to run the FAA until after the first plane crash of this presidency, the midair collision over the Potomac River in Washington that killed 67 people. That was soon followed by another deadly plane crash in northeast Philadelphia, which killed people both on the plane and on the ground. That was soon followed by another deadly plane crash in Alaska. In between, we had a plane crash into a tug on the ground at Chicago O'Hare, critically injuring an airport worker. We had a flight catch fire on the tarmac at Houston. Passengers had to evacuate not just down the stairs, but down the slides. We had 2 planes smash into each other on the ground at SeaTac. We had a small jet careen off the end of a runway into another small jet last week in Arizona. 4 people injured in that crash, 1 person killed. And now we have had this new crash of the Minneapolis to Toronto flight with the plane now upside down on the runway. There have been 5 plane crashes in the United States, or in flights originating in the United States, since Donald Trump started this second term as president 4 weeks ago. The Trump administration just, between plane crashes 4 and 5, told hundreds of employees at the FAA that they are fired, many of them expecting to be locked out of their offices as of tomorrow, which will be another day, once again, in the immediate aftermath of yet another plane crash, because we've had 5 so far since Donald Trump has been in office this term. The government does all sorts of things for which we need experience, expertise, accumulated and institutional knowledge, a stable training base, and a stable work environment in which professionals can oversee sensitive, complex, and life or death matters of 1,000 different kinds. What we have now instead is this wreckage. If you voted for Donald Trump, this is what you were voting for.